The fragrance world is a huge industry. Many people are spending thousands, if not tens of thousands of dollars on these bottles with smelly water that are supposed to make you feel certain ways. For example, based on your mood, you can wear a citrus or woody fragrance. Perhaps you're feeling decisive and bold today, and you want to splash on a bit of victory and own every room you step into. In that case, you should wear the new Trump fragrance, because that's what it says. But if you thought only presidents or celebrities could make their own fragrance, that's not true. The Circus is a perfume that will literally make you smell like the circus. The fragrance has notes of caramel apples, sweaty artists, elephants, and saddle leather. Another fragrance, going by the name of Funeral Home, actually replicates the smell of a funeral home. But that's not all. Etat Libre d'Orange, which is a French brand of perfumes, has created a perfume that smells like blood, sweat, sperm, and saliva.
Well, I could just lick this whole thing.
And it's not just a concept, you can actually buy it everywhere. Yes, the fragrance world could be bizarre and even crazy, but there's a lot more to it. Smell is one of our oldest senses evolutionarily and has deep connections with our survival instincts. For thousands of years, it helped our ancestors identify potential dangers such as spoiled food, predators, or environmental hazards like smoke or gas leaks. The art of perfume making originated in ancient Egypt. This knowledge was later brought to medieval Europe, where fragrant oils were used for healing. In the 15th century, the first eau de toilette, known as Hungary water, was used by Queen Elizabeth of Hungary in 1371. Since then, many more royalties have begun to use perfume to demonstrate their social status. Today, the fragrance world is a multi-billion-dollar industry. Just by running a quick search, you'll find hundreds of fragrance bloggers who will tell you everything you want to know about any fragrance. It might seem unusual, yet some people are obsessed with perfumes and can guess what fragrance someone is wearing simply by smelling it. For example, Jeremy Fragrance is a huge figure in the fragrance community, and despite being controversial and sometimes silly, he has inspired many people to start their own fragrance journey. And yes, there are people who are literally spending tens of thousands of dollars on fragrance just to flex their huge collection on TikTok and review each fragrance in particular. And then you have hundreds of thousands of people who are watching those videos, listening to the advice and getting inspired to buy a new bottle of fragrance, and then a new one. For example, here, a very popular YouTube channel going by the name of School of Scent is reviewing its subscribers' fragrance collections. With a quick search, it wasn't hard to find that even this tiny collection costs about $4,000. And I'm not even gonna mention people who have thousands of perfume bottles on their shelves, many of which will never be used in their lifetime. But how do big brands sell us a product that should be communicated to our noses, often before we even smell it? Well, the answer is because they don't sell a fragrance, they sell a feeling. There are a few patterns that most of the fragrance brands have used for decades that still work today. We've all noticed that perfume marketing is extremely emotional. That's because the brand's goal is to present an image of a lifestyle we wish to associate with. They will feature a model or celebrity in an appealing environment such as stunning landscapes or luxurious real estate, as well as a large amount of slow-motion footage involving expensive items, sex, and seduction. The pattern is so ridiculously common that at some point it has become comedic.
It doesn't have to make sense. It is a fragrance commercial. Now I am going to say some more words. Class, destiny, elevator, dartboard, baboon, Madrid, couscous, fire hydrant, tomatoes. Tomatoes are a fruit. Did you know that? It is such a curious fact.
Okay, but if everyone buys the same fragrances sold by luxury brands over and over, does this mean that everyone smells the same and is just a bunch of luxury consumers? No, there are actually people who see perfume as some kind of art, and they identify as fragheads. Those kinds of people are no longer interested in mass market or designer fragrances, which are typically created to appeal to a broad consumer base, are often produced in large quantities, and are widely available in department stores and mainstream retail outlets. That's why they prefer to spend their money on niche fragrances, which are created by smaller, independent fragrance houses and can only be found in specialized boutiques or exclusive department stores. And while niche fragrances can be impressive in terms of originality and creativity, sometimes they can be too much. For example, this fragrance here has goat hair tincture and ash listed as main notes. Or this one, in case you ever wanted to smell like vinyl. Or maybe you're feeling dirty today. In this case, you should look up to this fragrance, which has soil tincture listed as a note and literally smells like dirt. On the flip side, there are actually a lot of good niche fragrances on the market. One of those fragrances is Creed Aventus, a highly popular and well-known fragrance that has to be in every frag head collection. But its price of $495 for a 100 ml bottle makes it look less attractive in the eyes of those who seek it. So instead, they turned their attention to another fragrance, Armaf Club de Nuit Intense, which is a clone of Creed Aventus and usually comes in at less than a tenth of the price of the original. Not only that, but most people even prefer to use the clone instead of the original, because in many cases it lasts longer. That's how the clone perfume industry started. The main goal of these companies is to replicate the original juice as much as possible, but without copying the packaging or the name, so that they can remain clean and big companies can sue them. This way, they could satisfy those who wanted to try a certain fragrance but couldn't because of its high price tag. That's why we have Armaf Très Nuit, which is a clone of the popular Creed's Green Irish Tweed, Armaf Club de Nuit Silage, which is a clone of Creed's Silver Mountain Water, or Afnan 9pm, which is a clone of Jean-Paul Gaultier Ultra Male, are just a few of the many clone scents that have gained popularity in recent years. But how come a clone fragrance like Armaf Club de Nuit is incredibly similar and even lasts longer than the original Creed Aventus, and Creed still remains so expensive? Is it because of the ingredients they use? Are they more premium? Well, not really. Despite the high selling price, the production cost of a fragrance could be really low, and most of the fragrance influencers don't even hide it.
The production costs of a fragrance. First, you buy the glass bottle. The glass bottle is about 50 cents. Then you got the sprayer right here. This is another 50 cents. So we're at a $1. Then you got the cap. This is another 50 cents. Then you got the box around it, which is another 50 cents. So you're at $2 now for this empty stuff. You need the juice inside. The juice is the most expensive one. It's about $3. So 3 plus 2 is $5. And then you pay for the whole packaging, so it must be filled and everything. So that's another $1. So about $6 in total, and you have a finished fragrance.
For big brands like Creed, the production cost is even lower because they produce hundreds of thousands of pieces at a time. Okay, but if fragrance is so cheap to produce, why is it so expensive? Well, in 2001, there was a study at the University of Bordeaux where 54 top wine experts were brought together to taste and try different wines, both cheap and expensive. And in the end, they were asked if they noticed any difference. Remember, those people were wine experts and they all had an opinion. They knew exactly why cheap wine is cheap and why expensive wine is so good. The reality is, all of them were fooled, and these were the same wines. In fact, what they thought was red wine was actually white wine that had been dyed. A few years later, they did the same experiment at Caltech University, except this time they connected people's brains to a monitor. Same story, they told everyone which wine was cheap and which was expensive. The subjects consistently reported that they liked the taste of the $90 bottle better than the $5 one, and the $45 bottle better than the $35 one. Scans of their brains supported their subjective reports. So whenever there was an expectation of it being expensive, their brains in a certain area were more likely to activate, and they could actually have better taste. They drew in more flavor, and their brains literally told them it was better when the expectation was higher. So why does this matter with fragrances? Well, there's a reason companies like Chanel or Hermes never discount. They usually make their things very exclusive, and you can't just go and buy them unless they allow you to. That's how they set the expectation of exclusivity. Creed did the same thing with its Aventus fragrance, when they set up a high price and made it exclusive, despite the fact that their packaging is poor and the bottle is cheap, and there are tons of better fragrances at this price point.